Good afternoon and a warm welcome. You're watching Education News Network, and today we're bringing to you a new topic of discussion, that is the importance of imbibing moral values in the current generation. And for that, we have with us a panel of eminent educators who will be joining us in this discussion today. So let's welcome our first panelist of the day. We have Major General S.S. Nair, the Director of Birla Education Trust, Pilani. Welcome, sir. Thank you for being here today. Our next panelist is Mr. Mamta Singh, the CEO of Radcliffe Group of Schools. Welcome, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone.
We then have Ms. Mamta Singh, the Director of Shigally Hills Girls International Academy, Dehradun. Welcome, ma'am. Here. Our next panelist is Ms. Sinduri Reddy, the founder and managing director of the Premia Academy, Hyderabad.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for having us here.
Thank you. Our next panelist is Dr. Rajesh Hassija, the director of Indraprastha International School, New Delhi. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone.
We then have Ms. Homi Billimoria, the director of Maneckji Education Trust School, Mumbai. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
And our last panelist of the day is Mrs. Debaroti Bose, the director of Hermann Gmeiner Group of Schools and Institutes. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's very nice to be a part.
Thank you all for being here today. So to discuss our topic of the day, may I please invite Major General S.S. Nair to speak, please.
Oh, thank you so very much. A very good evening to all of you, and I'm happy and thankful to the organizers for allowing me to be part of this discussions. Moral values. One thing very good about the topic today is that I don't think there will be any disagreement among any of the panelists, whether there is a requirement of moral values or not. Is there a place for moral values in society or in schools? Is there a place for a school in inculcating moral values? Is there a place for teachers in this? So I think that's one thing good about it, about the subject. But my views, I got a few views on this subject. Firstly, of late, there is an increasing tendency to promote that moral values and ethical and moral standards are to be taught. I got some doubt about this, especially a person like me who belongs to a very, very early generation. We feel that we were not taught any moral values or as a part of a class or as a lesson. We never had a syllabus or a curriculum for. I don't even remember any of my teachers talking to me about this, this subject. So that's one thing my worry now is that nowadays we feel that the schools should be taking over the subject of moral education and moral values. Of course, in the olden days, probably among the Christian missionary schools, the Sunday school was there where the certain moral education was being taught, but that was only in a very limited scale. But on the public platform, it was not there. Now, what I have noticed is that moral standards of a generation is built up in the family. It is a family background, family's time. Family time is what builds up moral standards of a generation. Probably over a period of time, the family time has reduced, and the present generation or a generation probably earlier to this are not having good family time in terms of quantity as well as quality, and therefore there is a requirement to look outside the family for inculcating moral values among the children. So that may be the reason why the school fraternity, the teachers, the curriculum, the syllabus, etc., are being talked about moral standards. I'm sure some of the panelists will define what is moral standards and moral values, etc., is concerned. As far as I am concerned, as we live and live along, anywhere we make a judgment, that judgment will be based on our moral standard or moral values. Our moral standards will determine what judgment we are making. Wearing a jeans is correct or not. We make a judgment on wearing a jeans, that depends on what are your moral values, moral standards. Therefore, anywhere you make a judgment, moral standards are required, and you make judgment throughout the day, in and out. So therefore, moral standards are very, very important. Who should inculcate it? What is the method of inculcating this? What quantum can be inculcated? Can it be taught? Etc. I'm sure as we discuss further, things will emerge. As far as I am concerned, moral values, moral standards are very important for a generation or for a child, especially in the light of the fact that we are now talking about the emotional quotient of a child. My experience is a child who has got strong moral standards, strong moral values, automatically has got a high emotional quotient. Because coping becomes so easy. If your moral values are solid and strong, coping with a situation becomes very clear because there is no ambiguity in mind. There is no dilemma as to which way one should proceed because it is the moral value or the moral standard of the child will determine that this is the only course of action open to me. So therefore, when we talk about or when we give importance to emotional quotient, the anchor of emotional quotient is the moral values and moral standards of that child or for the generation. So if schools are entrusted with building up the emotional quotient of the student, better we look at the moral standards of that child. Thank you. I will stop here now. In case I get a chance again to speak, I will come in. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I completely agree with what you said, and also the fact that you touched upon how things are different now. I think it's because of the difference in parental involvement, as you said. Thank you. So, Mr. Mamta Singh, can we hear from you, please?
Yeah, thank you so much. And after whatever sir has told, I was just thinking what more I can add. But for me, I would just like to keep it a little simple. For I think moral values, when we talk, as he rightly said, no one will question whether we should ensure that it gets imbibed in students and everyone or not. But I think what is the more pertinent question today is that moral values, is it a fixed concept or is it a relative concept? For me, today is the era of questioning. Students, if you see the students of today, they question everything because of the information they have on their fingertips, thanks to internet, thanks to mobile, everything in an 8-inch format, they have information. So for me, while moral values can be simply put as something that can distinguish between right or wrong or to take a judgment, but that itself is questionable. I mean, what could be a good moral value to me could be different to someone else, unless there are some very proven concept. I'd like to bring an example here. In our times when we used to meet elders, we used to touch their feet. I personally used to feel very happy when I used to do that, and the type of blessings we used to get and everything. But today when I see, my son, sometimes he refuses to touch the feet because he feels it's odd. And when I tell him that, why don't you do that? So he's like, look, I have respect. But respect need not be just touching the feet. Till I have the respect in my heart, what's wrong in me bowing down? So it's a very relative thing. We should ensure, without any bias, we should ensure that we allow students and kids, especially who are growing up, to question everything and infer. So for me, moral values today are also losing steam because the focus is more on technology, the focus is more on building skills. The dynamic nature of business environment makes us fine-tune things at school also. Physics and chemistry and maths and whatnot remains the same. But the way we teach is changing. There are a lot of more videos and more visual mediums that students are liking rather than the old age books. So when we teach, my 2 cents on this is that we should definitely have a dedicated period or 2, depending on what the academicians can allow. But we should have a focus on this. Students should know that we are focusing on this. Second, we should use the new age technology like, the videos of the world and case studies and stuff like that, so that it becomes interesting. Gone are the days when I can give a mythology example to explain moral values. It has to be relevant. It has to be as per today. And I also feel that we should invite debates and questioning. And I feel that that way, what the student finally agrees is something which will remain with him or her for life. Finally, I also wanted to define that what are some of the things that we should look at in today's world. Moral values, there could be so many values: compassion, respect for everyone, not only elders and people around you, but also the environment is a big issue right now. Animals, plants, everyone. But at the same time, for me, some very small things which society is losing value today are some things that we need to teach. For example, respecting a queue. When people are standing in a queue, and a lot of times you see some people breaking it. These are some of the very small things that we need to teach. For example, a gender bias that we need to break. For example, at home, when someone comes, we expect a lady to serve. But if really those things are taught at school, I mean, what's wrong in a man serving also? I mean, these are small, small things which I feel should be taught at a school level. And the onus is on schools and programs and teachers to also be role models for the students to imbibe. So that would be my short summary of what I wanted to say. And again, glad to get involved whenever I get a chance. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Those were some really pertinent points that you put forth. Thank you. So, Ms. Mamta Singh, can you speak on the topic, please?
Very well said, Dr. Singh, Hassan and Mr. Singh. It was really good. And whatever I wanted to say, it is the same thing only. And the only one thing which I want to add is the morality or whatever the value education should start at when a very early stage of a child, when he or she is at home. The parent are the first person who are going to teach them the moral values. Like the sir you said, a child should know to touch the feet, and that's this all thing we can teach them while telling them the stories, the mythological stories, the Panchtantra stories and everything. And in my case, like I'm in a girls boarding school where only the girls are over there, so we have to teach them. Now I'm trying to introduce some value education classes also in my classroom, still from class 1 to 8, so that the children are at this early age, they should know the values, because some of the children, they don't even know the epic stories like Mahabharata. If you ask some characters about them, they don't even know who are these people. So this, like sir said, people now, the children are in this technologies and they are in the internet. They know many things, but there are some very basic, and especially in India, where we are very religious and we have so many good things to tell them, they don't know. They're like the early children, they used to know. Now these children, they know the technology. They are very good in smart, using this internets and all, but they lack all these kind of moral education. So I believe if we all try, as a parent, as a teacher, and as an educator, we can teach them. And we have to be, first, while when we are teaching, I believe that we should also practice the same. Like if we say, touch the feet, or if we say, respect a woman, we should do the same in that way, because the child or the young children, they learn through us only. Whatever
behavior becomes very important.
Yes. And above, you have said everything, whatever I wanted to say. And thank you so much for giving me such valuable time to tell you, share everything. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Sinduri Reddy, could we hear from you, please?
I think very valid points and beautiful points made by Mr. Nair sir and Mr. Maneckji Singh and Mamta ma'am. I'd like to add my 2 cents to it. The most important thing I think that keeps morality in check is having an emotional ecosystem. What I was trying to say is that what keeps morality in check, or morality as a way of life, for most of us and the generations before us, I'm sure the other panelists were, I think, generations older than me will agree to this, that family and friends and community, having community that stays by you, is what makes morality that much more appealing to a human being. For us in this generation, even in my son's generation now, he'll be 7 years old, and everything is pointed towards I, me, myself. The whole concept of community is disappearing. The whole concept of an emotional ecosystem where they can rely on each other, grow together is disappearing. So as much as we focus on ethics that are imparted, they have to be able to share those ethics with the people around them. So it's very important not just to walk the talk, not just to give them the opportunity to grow, not just to understand the fluidity of morals, but I think it's important to develop that support system for the child. We have to move them away from being in their screens to being with people. It's important that they understand that family and friends and community is forever, and that growth doesn't stop with me. Growth is when it happens together with everyone around them. And ethics or morals or integrity shouldn't be something that is confined to a textbook. I think it should be a way of life. That's it from my end.
Thank you. Completely agree with that. Thanks. Dr. Rajesh Hassija, could you speak on the topic, please?
Thank you. I have a mixed reaction after listening fellow panelists. I personally believe education without values means only literacy. And it's a very unfortunate time. There was a time when Gurukul, it was a complete manifestation of perfection, as Swami Vivekananda said. Fellow panelists, some of them are talking about moral values. Well, I would focus on values because to me, being courteous is one of the most important value. Being punctual, another important value. Self-discipline, no discrimination amongst gender, as Manas said it. One thing we have to be very clear that when we are teaching them the physics, chemistry, and mathematics, these values must be integrated in the part of the concept itself. That's why some time back CBSE had introduced even a question on the values in mathematics also, in science also, in every subject also. Should it be taught? Yes. Should it be demonstrated? Yes. It is the responsibility of the school. Today I say majorly because nuclear family, both parents working, the responsibility has come to the shoulder of the teachers, the school. Unfortunately, this is also a time for the competition where marks play a major role. And when in the line of competition, you want to be one up, in that case, you forget those values. My clear-cut one-point agenda is the values should be a part of school curriculum, should remain, because otherwise it is not an education. We are only training them to get a degree of high senior secondary or BA or MA, but we are not educating them at all. Then there are certain value, appreciating others' opinion, the tolerance for all religion, what we are talking about, the patriotism, pride for the nation. These are all today's missing, and it is our responsibility as a teacher. We must inculcate these values amongst the children. We must train them for this one. Therefore, within the school, there should be, if required, you have a activity-based time slot where the teacher demonstrate also and where it is taught also. Sometimes like punctuality, maybe demonstration is also there, but telling them also becomes a very, very important. My last thing, remember, value lets you know the difference between right and not so right. Relatively, a few things in terms of moral or religious may change, but right and not so right probably will remain same in different situations. Therefore, we must inculcate values amongst our children. Thank you, and over to you.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you. Miss Amy Homi Billimoria, can we hear from you, ma'am?
Yeah, thank you. I agree with most of what was said by all the eminent panelists. Yeah, I'm sorry, there's an aeroplane ahead. Yeah. So the point that I'd like to make is, do we adults actually put the interests of a child last? Do we give priority to everything and put the interests of a child last? I'm exploring this point because when we talk about values, there are many times we behave like we know it all. We tell our little ones, you have to do as you're told, it is good for you. Many parents and teachers feel that the words should listen to them only because they are older. Sometimes, in this urge to prove that we are right, we have somehow lost the humility to admit that sometimes children are much more self-aware and much more in the know of things than others and than adults. And this is very apparent also in their idea of values. A child is entrusted to our care. It's brought up, nourished. We do everything from the time a child is born. And then when the children fail to live up to our expectations, we blame society, we blame peer groups, we blame the media. Very few of us actually blame ourselves and wonder if we could have done better and where did we fail. So just to put another perspective to this discussion, parents may blame teachers, teachers may blame society, community will say the whole education system is wrong, our values are not being inculcated. We all agree that it needs to be done. We all know that values are best inculcated when they are observed, when they are seen. And therefore, the best person to teach values is the most morally upright person themselves. Teachers, parents, they do not have that luxury of doing what they want to do and then teaching moral values. I hope I'm getting my point across. They do not have the luxury of saying, do this, but doing something else. And very often you will see, you see the change. I've over the years taught many children of different age levels. You look into a little child's eyes and you see the sparkle, the enthusiasm present there. And then that same child grows up to be a teenager and that sparkle is lost, the enthusiasm goes away. There's an insolence which comes into the eyes of the teenagers. Who has put this insolence in that place? When does this transition take place? These are questions which we must ask ourselves. Is it possible that we have ignored the wishes of the child in the main scheme of things? Is it possible that while giving a good education and teaching good moral values, we have also given contradicting ways of, we have behaved in a way contradictory to what we expect from children. We have brushed aside their questions. We have crushed their intelligent queries. And maybe in all this, this is where we need to revamp the whole idea of building up a society on values. We know what is right, but we Indians are also very, very famous, if I may say so, for doing something else and speaking something else. There's a gap. And this gap is very easily seen in the eyes of the teenagers. They can understand us much better. They can, when you pick up the phone and tell your when your child picks up the phone and you say, tell him I'm not at home. Tell that person I'm not at home. I don't want to talk to him. What is the value? What is the value system you are imparting to the child? So you are telling them, don't tell lies.
Don't behave as an adult. You need to serve as role models.
Yes. So a role model, definitely. And let's not be too quick to blame our children or the education system or anything else. Let us look into ourselves, see what we do and what we say is the right thing, because we are the people who the children will look up to and the children will learn from.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Can I please invite our last panelist of the day, Mrs. Debaroti Bose?
Good evening. I think most of the things have been discussed, but my views. In India, we have a quote which everyone talks about. Have your parents not taught you anything? So what Mr. Nair said, yes, I absolutely believe in that it is the parents' duty to teach them moral values. But that was a generation which I belong to. That was a generation which Mr. Nair belonged to. Today, I think we have a digital lifestyle. We have single unit families. We have overworked parents, cutthroat competition where parents, whether it's a man or a woman, we forget, both of them are working in the corporate world. Where is the time for the child? So if I say where is the time for the child, the school has all the time for the child, because for 12 years, the child is with us for 6 hours. The best 6 hours of his life, the child has given to us for 12 years, 14 years. So I feel today the question of what parents have taught you should go and say what teachers have taught. So moral value, like everyone has said, it is absolutely not to be debated, has to be a part of the curriculum, has to be taught to the children, because there was a time when we used to all stay in a joint family. We used to have Gita part. We used to go for all the pujas which is happening, going to the temple with our grandparents. And someone just said that, yes, we used to read the Panchatantra, the Ramayana part which is happening. Today, where are the grandparents? We celebrate one day Grandparents' Day in our schools. So where are the grandparents? Because they're all single unit families. So parenting doesn't happen. Today, it has become child-centered upbringing for a couple. So, like all of you are saying, moral value is the core. It is the core of a child. It is the character which we build. And someone here also said that that is which is going to build your personality. And from a very young age, we need to teach them. We cannot put it in the hands of parents anymore. Where do they have the time? And we talk about, like Dr. Hassija said, I absolutely agree that we have to find time, like we find time in our timetable for maths, science. We need to have time for moral values. I am from Loreto. I used to have an ethics class. All my life, I used to have an ethics class. And at one time, people used to laugh at us that what is the ethics class? But today I feel that is what has taught us compassion, humanity, kindness, serving the country, patriotism. Do the children say thank you? Simple questions like, why do we have to teach them thank you? Because we ourselves have forgotten to say thank you.
Right, ma'am. I was actually
ourselves have forgotten to say thank you.
Right. That was actually a question I was going to ask you, that what are the kind of values you think should be imbibed into children by the school?
So these are the values, like say compassion, empathy. Do we teach a child what is the difference between empathy and sympathy? It is very easy to do sympathy. Okay, I am associated with NGO, so I see a lot of sympathy. But do we teach children empathy? Then the question of Swachha Bharat, we said everyone should know, why is it taking us so long to imbibe the value of Swachha Bharat? We need to teach them, because there was a time when our grandparents used to teach us, our aunts, everyone in the house used to teach us. Today, no one is teaching us. So,
but ma'am, don't you think this needs to be a joint effort of both parents and schools? Because you just spoke about Swachh Bharat.
Absolutely.
The school will excel it, but if the child sees the parents throwing a can out of a car, then what's going to happen?
So, but imagine, Nitya, the child is with me. Say, for example, a child is with me for 12 years for 6 hours. That is moral value which has to be inside the child to differentiate between right and wrong. And believe it, you take examples of different countries in the world where the young generation is taught to change the older generation, because we will not change, Nitya. The generation which is coming is going to change us. So if I lie in front of my child of 10 years should say, Mom, you are lying. Mom, you should not lie. Mom, you should. I still remember, Nitya, I was having peanuts and I was throwing it outside my Scorpio in the car. My son, 12-year-old son, had told me 10 years back that, Mom, what are you talking? You teach Swachh Bharat to your children. What are you doing? So this is what we have to come. And what you're rightly saying, I think we should have parenting session. So while we are teaching our children, we are supposed to teach the parent body also. So they are telling their children not to lie, but they will lie in front of their own child. So it has to be together. But I am in the sole belief that it has to be a part of curriculum. And one last thing, if you see CBSE curriculum, they have a life skill curriculum. Go through that curriculum. It is a wonderful and a beautiful, because I had been a CBSE life skill trainer myself when I was a principal. So it is a beautiful curriculum. And if my teachers are all taught, so in my 8 schools that we have, I have made sure each and every teacher goes through. 2 of my teachers are principals, are already life skill trainers for CBSE. So if you have that curriculum, and where the lesson plans are there, the questioning, how to start. It cannot be a maths, today we are going to learn kindness. No, it has to be. So the whole thing in the CBSE curriculum has come up, described so well that through the stories, through the different ages, different classes, how these have been set. So if CBSE is taking us, let us also put it into our curriculum. CBSE has come up with happiness curriculum. Do we put that? Now, imagine one thing, your child comes inside the class, come inside the house after 6 hours, and the mother or the father or anyone asks, what have you learned today? What is the new things? Do we ever ask, were you kind to someone today? Did you help someone? Did you make friend? Did you stop a fight? So have we changed? Have we changed the questioning pattern? So parent as well as the child, both has to be taught. And I feel today it is the school education system which has to take it up. Because I'm also working. My husband is working. So I sometimes think it from my point of view, both of us are working. My children are from both my boys are from a very good private school whose main motto was life skill. So when I see my boys today walking down and people say that you have 2 beautiful boys, I say 25% mine, but 75% is what the school has done. So can the whole world talk about it like that? So I feel it is a joint venture between the school and the parent, but as principals, as directors, as teachers, we need to make sure that it is a part of the curriculum, because we have taken it upon ourselves to create the next generation. The next generation has to be created by us.
Thank you, ma'am. Those were some really useful insights. Thank you. So, Major General S.S. Nair, sir, could you please, so we spoke about how it needs to be a joint effort of the schools and the parents to imbibe moral values. So can you tell me what is your message to parents in the context of imbibing moral values in kids at a young age, and what age exactly should they start at?
No, firstly, I'm very happy that the entire panelists are very enthusiastic and very optimistic, and they are very confident that moral values are to be taught. It can be taught. It's already, there's a place in the curriculum and the syllabus. So that means half the job is done. As far as the parents are concerned, I really do not know what sort of advice we can give them. Will any parent agree that we are not teaching the moral values? No parent is going to agree that we are not going to teach the moral values. Our house, our family is one of the ideal family. We live the best of thing. Everything happens in our house. हमारे घर में तो लड़कियां तो आंख ऊपर उठा कर देखता ही नहीं है. लड़कियों तो मुंह तो खोलता ही नहीं है. So where is the problem?
Don't we
That is the
need to do
issue.
away with that sexist attitude?
That is where that is the issue. तो अगर लड़का है तो बात करेंगे, और लड़की है तो बात नहीं करेंगे. हमारा घर तो इतना अच्छा है. So we are living as per, understand. No, this dichotomy, this problem with the parent, that is the starting point. How do we change it? I don't really know. Unlike certain Western European countries, and some, I think probably Debaroti brought out this parental coaching and parental care. I have seen established organized institutions associated with the schools, co-located with the schools, where parents are called in for training. It is mandatory for the parent of that school to attend a certain periods of training under that principal, under the teacher of that school where the child is studying. I wish probably Madam Debaroti Bose, who is so enthusiastic about the whole thing, is given such an opportunity. If her parents also come up, and spend some time listening to them. This sort of an institution, I don't know whether we can form it or not. Parents, they automatically, I feel that I have lived a life of moral values. I must have violated a few things once in a while, that after all, a human error must have happened. But the credit goes totally to my parents. They never allowed me to err. I don't know where they learned it from. And they were not very educated even. So the parents, parenting, building up moral values among the children is a natural gift a parent must. It's a 4-hour drive from here to Delhi. Swachh Bharat is running for the last, 7 years, 6 years, whatever it is. If I drive from Pilani to Delhi, if I have to attend to nature's call, I have got no option but to stop the car and do it in the open. Because there are orders. Every petrol pump will be open, everything will be, but nobody opens it. The key is not with them. He says a key lena gaya hua hai. Now you spend half an hour waiting for that key to come. And when the key comes and he opens it, that's a good corona test. Aapka smell hai ya nahi hai, aapko pata chal jayega. Now the environment. So while I respect what Madam Debaroti Bose brought out, that school has got an immense role. I agree with you. School, tremendous. Yes, we take the responsibility. But there's an equal element outside the school. What I experienced is that many a times what we imbibe in the school get negated by their out of the school experience of these children. I just threw this out, probably to challenge some of the thoughts. Not that, that's again an unsurmountable issue or anything. Schools are powerful, but school can still correct these things, there's no problem. But looking at school all alone, I got no doubt, especially these days, when the first thing to be closed is a school and the last thing to be opened is a school. And a lot of people are telling that schools are not even required. I don't know. That is one line of thinking in a large part of the society now. And they want everything to be done in the school. We are good. We take up all these responsibilities. But then there should be support from outside the school ecosystem also. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We're running a little short of time, so I think we can wind this up. I'll just get to the questions. Okay, so Mr. Manas, you spoke about how the current generation has changed and how your son refuses to touch the feet of elders. So in this context, given the change in lifestyle of people these days, the parenting focus we see has kind of shifted to a child-centered raising method. And this results in children being left off the hook and they're rarely accountable for their actions. So what are your thoughts on this?
My thoughts could be a little radical, but I am of a very firm opinion that while we should have a supervisory role around our kids and our students, but today is not the world where you literally hold them tightly. And my own experience says that the more you hold something tightly, it breaks even faster. So I think we need to have a very matured approach. Whatever we say, it will be checked on the internet, whether what we said is right or wrong, unfortunately. So, I think my view on your question is that we should definitely show them the way, give them relevant examples. Even schools should run programs which should be very interesting. It should not be boring. I hear this word called gyan that all kids say now, ki gyan mat do, gyan mat do. So, we should be smart enough to talk in their language, whether it is the video language, visual languages, or some interesting cases and stuff like that. Or even for that matter, when you talk about what parents can do, there could be a lot of written material and blogs and stuff which can be circulated through WhatsApp, where academicians and eminent people who have knowledge about this can also remind parent, and more than reminding, can guide parent. But I am of a firm opinion that I will not hold any child. I would go with logic. If my child says that I respect my grandfather, but touching feet suddenly is not something which comes naturally to me, I need to see whether he really loves his grandfather or not, and whether he will stand for him or not. And for me, that's more important than touching the feet. I can give you a contrasting example where people do that, but when the time comes, they don't even look at the elders. So I think we should respect logic, and we should counter students with logic, kids with logic. At least my experience is that today's generation, they love to debate, they love to question, and that is what we need to encourage and be a part of it. We can't say that, look, I am 20 years elder to you, so boss, main jo bolunga wahi hoga. That doesn't work. It might work for some time, but then you are actually creating a more rebellious nature in the kids. That's what would be my thing. And finally, I would say that give a lot of examples, give a lot of interesting anecdotes, and ask your child or ask your student, what do you feel about it? Don't tell them that this is what you should feel about it. Please ask them what do you infer from it. And that is what I think should make sense. That is what I think should make sense. So these are
just teaching, you need to have a discussion with the child.
Absolutely. And counter them with logic and respect their answers if they are right. You cannot be right all the time. I think logic is the part which should finally decide who is right and who is wrong. And sometimes you can have contrasting opinions, respect that. Right. Till the bigger picture is met, I think I am fine. I am fine with it.
Thank you, sir. So, Ms. Amy, I'd like to ask you, don't parents need to realize that if they don't teach kids values, it will all come back to them in the future? They are going to face the repercussions.
Is this question for me?
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't hear the name. Sorry. Yeah. So if parents, I'm sorry. Could you repeat it? I'm sorry. Could you repeat your question?
Don't you think parents need to realize that if they don't teach their kids values at a young age, it's ultimately going to come back to them? They are going to have to face the repercussions of this.
Yeah. So my point has always been that it doesn't matter whether you're a parent or a teacher or any elder who's interacting with children. If we are in the presence of children, whether we are parents or not, whether we are educators or not, we have a moral obligation to be the best kind of example for children to follow. And then leave it to them to decide what is right and what is wrong. As Mr. Maneckji said, as General Nair said, there's so many viewpoints which we haven't even explored in our whole lives. Children are going to think very differently in the coming few generations. And can we just put our thoughts on them? I don't think so. So yes, to answer your question, parents should be made aware, and not only parents, but every adult who is surrounded or who is in the company of children. Every adult has this obligation to ensure that the correct example is set in front of the children and correct thoughts are put in, and also must have the humility to accept whatever the children think is important in their view. We have to understand sometimes that what we think and what children think are not the same thing. And that is where the conflict starts.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. So, Dr. Rajesh Hassija, what are your thoughts on the statement, a person's values are a reflection of the environment they grew up in? We can't hear you.
Very true. The environment makes a huge difference in the upbringing of every child, and thus it brings a change. If Gandhari had closed her eyes in the Mahabharata, as it is said, and she followed Dhritarashtra, and one can see the difference between Pandavas and Kauravas. I personally again say that inculcating values, as Amy said, it is a responsibility of the entire community, entire society. One has to focus on. But if we are talking that our parents were very careful about inculcating values, and present generation parents are not, doesn't it mean that our education system has failed? Where they were taught, they probably have not been brought up to that level of integrity and values which it should be. Let's not generalize anything. Let's not blame anything. The day you begin, that is the beginning. Let's take it from today, that focus on inculcating value. You are using word imbibing. Yes, I have to imbibe because I am not fully valued person. But then as a teacher at this age, my focus is on inculcating. So imbibing and inculcating values right from today must begin in a very structured manner. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. So, Ms. Mamta, my question to you is, like you spoke about the mythologies and all of that, the examples we need to give children. Don't you think it needs to be relevant to the current generation? Like as Mr. Manas and our other panelists said, there's a change in the generation. So how do you think we need to adapt?
And I agree with all the panelists that the generation has changed now. New generation are totally digital. They understand through videos, they understand through internets. It's very difficult to make them sit and tell them the stories. But you know, the way we have different ways of telling them. The first thing is that, and I told you that whatever we teach them, we must preach it also. That is very important, isn't it? And I know the stories, the young generation, they are not going to listen to the stories, all these panchtantras and all, but we can, you know, they really adapt themselves through these videos, through the games and these internet things. So why can't we change our mode of teaching them? Why can't we be so that boring? We can be very friendly with them and teach them everything they want to know about. You know, we as a parent also, they should give them some quality time to their children. They should sit with them for at least 15, 20, even though if they are busy, if both the husband and wife are working, they should spend some or the other little time with their children and teach them some moral values. Not only the teachers or the educationists are responsible for teaching the moral values. I believe parents too are responsible, because at an early age, when the child is 2 years or 3 years old, they should teach them how to eat, how to sit, how to wish their elders. And there are so many things like not throwing the litter from the car windows and cleaning the place, or letting elder person wishing them. All these kind of things should be taught at home only. And like sir said, that we should introduce life skills and moral value education in classes. That is also very important, especially for the boarding children, those who spend most of their time in the school only. The moral education should be taught in the school in the way of videos, or in the way of books, or life skills, or other curriculums. So that's all I want to say. Thank you so much.
Question goes to Ms. Sinduri. Ma'am, you spoke about instilling a sense of community in children of the current generation. So can you touch upon that a little and tell us how schools can strive to do this?
Absolutely. So when it comes to schools, we often say that, you have to learn from different people. That's how you grow. So we always ensure that we have different kinds of children in the same class. Children with higher IQ, children who have maybe musical skills, children who have maybe kinesthetic skills. We put all of them together and we say that you have to learn from each other. But I don't know if this is a connotation that anyone else will agree with, but in a class of 40, how many people do we actually get along with? I think I grew up in a class where we were 60 in number and our group of friends was 5. So I think it has to go a step beyond just the classroom. I think it's important to teach our children to tribe together, to vibe together. That's how they imbibe all these moral values and ethics that we speak about. That's how it becomes a way of life. In our school, we have this initiative where we put kids who have similar interests together, so they come up with better ideas. While they learn from their peers who are opposite to them, they also learn from peers who have similar interests. We encourage parents to come and celebrate sports with the kids. Like how kids compete, parents also competed. Teachers also competed. And this is an initiative a lot of schools follow. And I think we have to remove that sense of competition from our children if we really want them to grow together.
Everything has to come about the rat race.
Exactly.
Absolutely agree with you, ma'am. Thank you. And thank you all for being a part of this panel today. It was great. And I'm so glad that all 7 of our educators agree that schools also play a very important role in imbibing moral values. And it's not just parents. Thank you.
Thank you
so
very
much.
Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity, Nitya. It really means a lot to us.
Thank you, ma'am. It was great having you. And with that, we come to the end of this extremely insightful panel discussion where we learnt about the importance of imbibing moral values in this generation. Due to time constraints, we could only take a few questions, but if you have any additional queries related to the topic, do write to us and we'll be glad to take them offline. For more such videos, do log on to our website, theenn.com, and don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to our channel. For now, signing off, this is Nitya.